congratulate everyone who has received an award grant this year. It was not an easy feat. Believe me, there was a record-breaking number of applications this year. So congratulations to all who received an award grant and a placement, and we hope your time in Spain will be memorable. We want to address a couple of things before handing it over to the intern. So I'm going to share my screen here so that you can follow me along with these topics. Okay, so here I am, okay. And the first thing that I'd like to discuss are visas, okay. We are really terribly sorry about this, but we are not able to help you with the visa processing. Visas are consular matters, and they must be addressed by the consulates, following their requirements. We know that some of them are taking longer than you expected, but please hang in there. The consulates are working diligently and trying to process all the applications in due time. If for some reason your visa were to be delayed and this affects your arrival date in Spain, schools will be accommodating, okay? Just make sure to keep the schools up to date on any issues you're having with your visa, the schools, okay? The other topic that I wanted to address were letters of acceptance. These are issued only by the regional education offices. So unfortunately, you're going to have to reach out to them. We can help you with that. They are the ones who issue these letters of acceptance and send them out to you via email, okay? Next topic, this takes me right to their website. All the contacts for the consulates, all the contacts for the regional education offices are there. All the info is on there. It's a lot of info, but it's important that you read it, okay? All you have to do is search for NALCAP and you'll find the website and you'll find out all that information. And speaking of all of this, I did want to talk about the different offices involved in the management of the program. We are NALCAP, okay? We are the Embassy of Spain in the United States and in Canada. And what we do is answer general questions and help you through the application process. All right, we guide you through that. Then once your applications have been submitted, we go on to the Ministry of Education in Spain. They are the ones that review your applications and give you your regional placements. After that, it goes to the regional education offices, what in Spain are called comunidades autónomas. They handle the school placements. They give out the stipends. They handle the health insurance. And they also issue, as I said before, the letters of acceptance. And then also you have the schools. They're going to help you with classroom life, with transportation issues, and they may be able to help you with housing in the area also, okay? And then I also wanted to address people who are still inscrita or admitida. There are still placements available, very few, but there still are some available. And sometimes people also have to withdraw from the program. So those positions go into the batch also. So if you really want to go to Spain and are willing to wait, hang in there. There are still some positions available, okay? Before going to Spain, some things to do. Obviously, as I mentioned, the visa. Do not leave the United States or Canada before getting it, okay? A visa allows you to stay for an extended amount of time in Spain, unlike if you go in as a tourist, all right? So this is really, really important. Once you get to Spain, you'll use your visa to get your residency card, all right? So that's very important. And we do not recommend that you leave prior to 15 days before the starting date of October 1st. COVID restrictions could change and this could affect you. So please keep that in mind, okay? Contact your school, have a good communication with them. It is the month of August. Most schools are closed in Spain, so it may take a while for them to get back to you, but contact them and have a good communication with them. The next thing, stipends. Many of you asked us about this. When will you be getting your stipend? Well, that's going to depend on a bunch of different things. It'll depend on your regional education office because they're the ones that send it out. It'll depend on your bank. It'll depend when the weekend falls that month or what the last day of that month is what date it falls on. You'll usually get paid at the end of the month or the first 5 days of the next month. So your first stipend you should receive at the end of October or the first 5 days of November. The stipends are monthly and you will get them through direct deposit. Okay. The next thing, medication. All right. We suggest that if you have any chronic illnesses or needs, that you take your medication from here, from the United States or from Canada before going over to Spain. Your insurance doesn't cover medication, but usually meds are cheaper in Spain than here. But while you're settling yourself down in Spain, it's a good idea to take anything you need. Just as an example, I have asthma. And when I came over from Spain to here, I brought all my inhalers with me for about a year. And now I'm going to go back to continue. And we have unlocking your phone, right? So unlocking your phone, we recommend that you do that before leaving the United States. So in this way, once you have a cell phone plan in Spain, you can put your Spanish SIM card in and save your American SIM card in case you go back. You keep your plan on your American cell phone. Okay. All right. The next thing that I wanted to address were the language assistant roles. Okay. You are solely there to support the lead teacher. You shouldn't be left alone with an entire class. Now, sometimes the teacher might ask you, they might do something like breakout groups, and they might say, all right, we'll take half of the class over to another classroom and work with them for conversational skills. That's fine. But, you shouldn't be in charge of watching the whole class while the teacher is, if the teacher is out doing something else. So just be really careful about that. You're not going to have no creation of classroom curriculum. And if any of these things were to happen, this is not common again, okay? Contact your principal first. And if this, and if that doesn't work, well, then you can just contact your regional education office. All right. But this is not something that happens usually, but I did want to bring it out there. And I did forget to mention one thing on the stipends also. We had a question that said, I keep hearing that stipends will be delayed. Is this problem corrected? I really want to address this, that this is not a norm. Okay. This has happened randomly in the past in certain education offices, but this is not what happens usually. Okay. So if in the case this were to happen, you have to contact your regional education office, right? But again, these things are not common, but I just want to make sure that I bring them to your attention, all right? And now some COVID-related information. So there's a whole bunch here, all right? We recommend that you check the info found on the US and Canadian Embassy in Spain websites, all right? Things, as you know, with COVID are changing constantly, and they almost always have updated information, all right? So that's a really, really good idea. Before, we have the link for that if somebody can put it in the chat. There's also a health form for entering Spain that you're going to need. We're also going to put that link in the chat, Monica or Mariluz, if you could do that. All right. And you're going to have to fill out that online form, and then you're going to get a QR code. You're going to need this at the airport in the United States or Canada. When you leave, they're going to ask you for that to let you get on the plane. And then they're going to ask you for that once you get to Spain. So that's really important to do. Will you need a PCR? We do not know. As of today, to enter Spain, you do not. But by the time you fly over to Spain, they might require it. So requirements for entry into Spain are changing constantly. You're going to have to check continuously on updated health requirements, okay? Entry. Remember that entry into Spain, we recommend only 2 weeks before October 1st. Vaccines. We really recommend that you get vaccinated here in the US or in Canada. If you wait to do it in Spain, it might take a while because it might take a while for you to get into the Spanish healthcare system. So it's a good idea to do it here. Just so that you know, last year, all teachers, school staff, language assistants were vaccinated in Spain. Now, as of today, 70% of citizens in Spain are vaccinated. So it would be a good idea to do that, okay? And then mask mandates. We know for sure that there will be a mask mandate this coming school year. This happened last year. Last year, there were mask mandates, and there was also a lot of ventilation and window opening going on in the classroom. So you may have to dress accordingly because sometimes it gets cold. But having these things in place made it a very successful school year for the entire Spanish school system, okay? And then just before the documents that you need to take, you'll be, it's a good idea to take the following docs plus 3 or 4 photocopies of them, your passport with the visa, the medical certificate you used for your visa application, the background check that you used for the visa application, your letter of acceptance, your vaccination card if you're vaccinated, and anything else your school or regional education office has asked you for. Okay, before handing it over to the interns, I would like to thank all of those Facebook groups and bloggers and those of you with social media accounts of all types that have helped us promote the program. Thank you so much for that. And a big, big thank you for our interns who do so very much for the program. And so now I'm going to hand it over to them. They're going to introduce themselves. We're going to start off with April. So April.
Hello, everyone. My name is April, and I am a language assistant in Madrid. Before we start introducing ourselves and answering some questions, I would like you to use the Q&A button instead of the chat because we can answer you typing and it will save in the Zoom webinar. Should I start with the questions or should we go to Camila?
Let's do the introductions first, April. Yeah, so who's next for introducing? Camila?
Hello, I am Camila. I'm currently in Madrid right now. And I'm excited for all of you to come to Spain and to see what it is to be an Ox. So it's nice to have you all here.
Hi there, I'm Dana, and I was an auxiliar in 2019 and have been a huge fan. I think it's an amazing program and it does such a valiant, has such a valiant cause behind it.
I got too excited. My name is Michael and I'm a language assistant here in Madrid, and I'm really excited to help you with your new journey discovering Spain.
Okay, thank you. So April, why don't you start with housing?
Okay, so we have a lot of questions on housing. So I think I'm gonna start off with, in general, my tips on finding an apartment in Spain. My first tip would be to be in Spain. I would suggest that you come to Spain first before you start looking for an apartment. There are some websites like Idealista, Fotocasa, and a lot of Facebook groups where you can find apartments. And while you are looking for an apartment, one tip that I would suggest is while you're looking is to have a phone plan already so that you can call immediately when you see a listing, because especially during August and September, the houses go super, super fast. So having a phone number and being able to call people instead of just WhatsApp audio is really useful to get like your foot in the door to see the apartment ASAP. Any other interns want to add some of their tips?
What I would recommend is, now that you're in the United States, one thing that will save you some time and energy is to come up with a short bio of yourself that you can copy and paste in your notes app. So what you're going to state in this bio is who you are, what your job is, how long you're planning on staying in Spain, and where you are working. So what you can do is you can copy and paste and send that bio to any of the landlords or other people that are seeking roommates, and that saves you time and energy. Instead of writing and repeating the same message, just type one, change out the specifics, and send it to everybody else, or to every other landlord that you seek. It's also important that in the contacts, When you're sending out a message to those landlords, put the direction of where the apartment is. Put down the street number, and then any other notes that will help you so you can stay a little bit more organized.
Well, I will guess, does anyone else want to jump in on the housing, or should I just do the next? So my next question.
Say on housing, right? You guys, I think you have more, right?
So how to pick
Yeah, I have more questions.
So how to pick a hotel or Airbnb when you first arrive for like the apartment hunt. I would say personally, if you know the location for your school, you should probably like get one just a little bit in the center so you can have that experience when you're here to like look for places, but also so that you know the easiest route to get to your school from that point, because that's probably the most important thing. And then you can kind of decide like whether you want to have a long commute in the morning or like you want to commute to the center afterwards. But that's if you're living in Madrid. So it's different for every region. I think the most important part would be to like know where your school's located and make that the priority for your housing situation. If anyone else wanted to jump in for that one.
So I also got the question of where or how much did you pay for rent? So I want to just let you know first, I was up in Bilbao in the north of Spain, and for my rent, I paid, inclusive of my utilities, I paid 280. But I did have friends who lived more, but I was living in a little pueblo just outside of Bilbao, like 15 minutes. And that was mine. But I had friends who lived directly in the city, and they were paying anywhere from like about 440, 450 was the range. So keep that in mind. If you're living in the center of it all, you'll pay a little bit more, but it will be worth it.
So as we're talking about finding housing, I would like to share some red flags when looking for housing. One red flag I would say is if the pictures and the price look too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true. Another one is if the landlord doesn't want to give you a contract, that's a big red flag, because you will need your contract later on to apply for an empadronamiento for your TIE. Another red flag I would say is if they ask you to pay via Airbnb, don't do that. And also, I have a question here about short-term leases and if they're available for most language assistants. The shortest lease that I have seen is 6 months. Normally they are 1 year. Again, I would say there are some times where people will rent to you a room, and sometimes if you rent a whole apartment. If you rent a room, you're going to have to pay a fianza of 1 month, as well as the first month. Some places have an agency, and you might have to pay 3 months. So when coming to Spain, bring enough money for at least 3 months of rent to enter your apartment. And yes, anyone else want to add on short-term or renting an apartment?
Not necessarily short term. I'm sorry, Dana, but not necessarily for short term. But in the chat below, I'm going to go ahead and send some questions that you should be prepared to answer and ask of the landlords. So like I said before, the questions they should be asking you and the questions that you should be asking them. So asking them, how long is the contract? Who is on the contract? Who is in charge of receiving the payments for the rent as well as the utilities? You know, the more prepared that you are, and by utilizing these questions that are in the chat, the better off you will be. And they will look at you more confidently and probably will keep you in mind when it comes to renting out the apartment, knowing that you have questions for them and you can at least, you know, create that conversation. You know, your housing, for some people, you might get lucky and get the first house you see. But for most people, you probably won't. So keep in mind that every viewing that you do view in person is just extra practice of utilizing your Spanish, looking to see what you want in terms of flats and things that are good and the things that are bad when it comes to apartment searching. But I have confidence that everybody here will find their way home, literally home, in their new placement in Spain.
I fully agree also with what Michael was saying about asking them the right questions. That is totally true. I was in line for an apartment and it was like us versus, it was me and my roommate who was American and someone else who I believe was a Spanish resident, and like the landlord was having like a trouble like picking who it was. But I think through the solid communication that we had with him, he like ended up just giving us the place. So yeah, just definitely be prepared. And like, if you don't speak Spanish or like aren't fluent, as long as you're like actively trying and like making them know that you're like doing the most that you can to be there and like be a good tenant, like you will probably get a chance to have that place. But just, yeah, I would agree with being really prepared also. And was this it for moving, or should?
I would like to add some other questions, sorry, that you should ask your landlord. Thanks, Michael, that was a good idea. But you should also ask them if gastos are included. That means light, gas, water, internet. And if they're not included, you have to ask them what kind of gas is in the house, because if it's electric, usually it's kind of like more expensive. So that's another tip I would give to people.
Okay, does anyone have anything to add on to housing, something that they feel, yeah?
Thing I have is host families. So a lot of people look for like au pairs, which is like people who come and with them in exchange for like housing, and then like you talk to their kids and are with their kids essentially for like speaking English the whole time, so that they have like that extra reinforcement. And a lot of people like either find this through other people that they may know, or like sometimes even listings mention it. But also one way that I've seen people get it is the actual teachers from your school sometimes even offer this. That happened at my last school. So they already know you, they work with you every day, and then you just like walk their kids home, and then you pretty much get rent for free. Well, that's how it was for the situation that I was familiar with, a free rent, and then you just kind of hang out with the kids in English all day until a certain time, and like that's about it. So there's possibilities for host families. You just kind of have to look for them and see what works for you best.
Okay, great. All right, so someone's asking if we're going to be addressing all the questions in the Q&A. We're addressing right now the questions that we received from you when you signed up for the Zoom. We will try and get to some of them, but there are big topics that we want to make sure you get the information on. And the next topic is bank accounts. Okay, so who wants to start off with bank accounts?
Dana.
Yeah, I can start off. Oh, okay, so bank accounts. There's a couple questions that I got, and I think it's important to address mostly all of them. But we'll start with, should I get my housing first, or should I get my bank account first? April also has a good suggestion for this one, so I'll let her chime in too. But from my experience, I would say that it's good to go on ahead and get your housing first if you can. But again, if you're strapped for time, you haven't found a house yet, probably my tip would be to give them the address of the hostel or the Airbnb that you're staying at for the time being, because a lot of banks will be flexible in letting you change your address later on. Keep in mind that each bank does change its rules from one to the other. So those are my tips for what should be done first. I think April has some good suggestions.
Yes, so my sister-in-law works for BBVA, which is BBVA. She told me specifically, if you have a NIE, so some consulates issue your visa with a NIE already, and then you just need to get the TIE, which is the physical card. So if you have the NIE, you can sign up for an account in BBVA online. If you don't have a NIE, you can sign up with your passport, but you have to go directly to the branch. And like Dana said, you don't need to have an apartment yet. You can put your school address, your hostel address, and they will accept it, and you can change it later. Also, there are some accounts, I believe if you're under 30, they don't charge you some fees. You have to research that, but I know, for example, I'm in the Bank Sabadell, and it's like an expansion account with my passport. And if you're under the age of 30, they don't charge you bank fees. So
Santander. Santander doesn't charge that.
Perfect. So what I wanted to state as well is when you arrive and you're looking to open your bank account, keep in mind you will need to bring some documents. So most likely you will have to provide your passport along with your visa, a copy of your carta de nombramiento, and anything that, you know, identifies with your identity. So I mean, the more documents that you can provide, the better. They may ask for a tax form that you may have to, you know, get seen in the United States. But keep in mind, any of the banks that Spain has, there are a variety of different chains. Keep in mind that the chain that you go to specifically, you must open and close directly at that chain. If you choose to change banks later on or close your account, keep in mind you must go to that specific location that you opened. A lot of the paperwork is revolved around that personal location. So keep that in mind in case you're looking to do some other paperwork later on, where you might run into some issues.
To add on to Michael's point, especially if you don't plan on getting a Spanish SIM, because I saw a question about that. If you keep your international, like your number from the States, like I did, you're allowed to use that to sign up for the banks, but it's really tricky, especially because a lot of banks use like text or SMS or phone calls to confirm things. And sometimes it'll go through and sometimes it just stops working altogether. And it's seriously, it's crazy. And even with like the apps, like you have to sign in and it asks. So honestly, I would say it is better to have an international phone number, like a Spanish phone number for getting a bank account, just off of personal experience.
I saw someone comment in the chat real quick about online banks. Online banks like N26 and ING will give you a Spanish IBAN. I also saw a lot of questions in the Q&A on what is an IBAN. IBAN is the number of your bank account, and you're going to have to give that to your school on the day that you arrive. I have here a question about currency, cash credit, transferring money, and Venmo. So if you would like to transfer money from your US account to your Spanish account or vice versa, the most common one that most of us use is called TransferWise. It has the lowest fees and it's the most reliable. As for Venmo, in Spain, they have Bizum. And again, Bizum is used with a Spanish phone number. So another reason why you should get a Spanish phone number.
Yeah, and I had the question, do I have to use my Spanish credit card, or can I use cash, or can I use my American credit card? So that's going to be something, before you go overseas, I would suggest talking with your bank. Definitely don't forget to advise them that you're going to be in Spain and ask them about the best travel card option for that. Some of those credit cards will give you points as well, so added bonus. And they'll allow you to actually use your card without being charged an extra percentage. Most banks, when you use your American credit card or a debit card in Spain, what will happen is when you go to the ATM, most of the time you'll get charged a surcharge fee on top of what you are pulling out of the ATM. And this can be very high. So I would suggest to definitely discuss these options with your bank. And yes, you can certainly use your Spanish card the moment that you put some funds in there. It might be worth it to, when you're opening up a bank account, with most bank accounts in Spain, you'll need to deposit 50 euros or 10 euros or some amount just to have it present in the bank.
And at any time, if you feel unsure about how to have this conversation with banks in Spain, contact your school. Hopefully, maybe your bilingual coordinator or one of the teachers that you work with will be your helping aid. I mean, in years past, I've had several friends that were able to speak with their coordinators, and they accompanied them to help open up the bank and get anything done with paperwork. So do not let your level of Spanish, concern you. You have several people in your community, in your school. You'll find friends upon arrival, and everybody will help each other out. So keep that in mind.
Just want to address this last thing. This might have been addressed already in the question I just answered, but do I close down my US bank account when I come there? Absolutely. Your finances are your personal thing. I definitely did not. So
Me neither.
yeah, I wouldn't, from my personal experience, I wouldn't suggest it.
Um,
Like somebody is asking, what are the benefits of a Spanish bank account? The benefit is that's how you get your stipend. So you need to do that. I just wanted to address that really quickly. Go ahead, April. Sorry. Oh, Camila.
Spanish bank, like that's a lot of times, like for example, my utilities for my last place, they put my IBAN number in, like he like changed out his number and his account for my Spanish bank account and information so that like I would get charged the utilities every month. So it really is like universally useful for like every aspect of life here to me.
Okay. And someone's saying if they should take cash. No, it's what April said before, do the transfer wise, get a bank account and you can link it to your American bank account and you do the transfer there, right?
on the term of, I'm going to take this moment to address a little bit about the phones and internet. While we're talking about banks and stuff, but as I said, it's very important to get a phone for banking and for life and Visum. But some phone plans here, the phone plans are very, very cheap and they're really good. There are more or less 3 to 5 cell phone and Wi-Fi companies that are the big companies in Spain: Movistar, Orange, Vodafone. There's one in País Vasco, but those 3 are the main ones. And beneath those 3, they have like budget companies that piggyback off their networks. So you have Lowy, 20, Más Mobile, and many more. Most apartments come, if you're renting a room, you're probably going to have internet. If you would like to rent an apartment with 3 bedrooms and share it with your friends, you're going to have to put the internet in. Someone said my eyelashes look bomb. Thank you. I'm sorry. So if you're sharing your apartment, you have to get internet. And within each kind of like zone in the city or in the country, one of the top 5 or the top 3, Movistar, Orange, Vodafone, is gonna work better. So for example, where I live, Vodafone and Orange the internet isn't as fast. So I'm with Movistar, which means that I would have to, if I wanted to get a budget one, I would have to go through a budget company that is on the same network as Movistar. And also, if you are going to get Wi-Fi, I would recommend you get your Wi-Fi and your cell phone plan together because it's much, much, much cheaper. I pay 34 euros a month for internet and 28 gigabytes of data. That is accumulative. And then they gave us 60 gigabytes for summer, just for fun. But yes.
Okay, so we're gonna, sorry to interrupt, April, we're gonna have to go on. I don't know if anybody wanted to say like the really last thing concerning bank accounts. The most important thing is that you really need to open one, yeah? Okay, so we're gonna move on to schools and class prep and stuff like that. I think I addressed this before, but probably maybe not. Is there a possibility that if schools get shut down, we'll go online? That is a possibility. That did not happen at all during the last school year, okay? This is what I was addressing at the beginning. It happened when COVID shut down everything, but then not during the last year, except in some certain classrooms. When there was somebody that tested positive, they might have shut down one classroom. So then you might have to. But no entire school was closed during the entire last year. Okay, so that's, if it didn't happen last year, it's probably not going to happen this year, even though with COVID, you never know. But I wouldn't worry about that. All right, if anybody else could jump in with this.
Sure, I can
Michael?
go ahead. So
yes, please.
Many of you are wondering right now, what should you do in terms of contacting your school? Right now, schools are still on holiday here in Spain. what you can do is you should have received an email address on your carta de nombramiento. There, you can contact your school directly and send them an email. Now, that email can be replied to, or it could just be, forgotten until your first day of work. But what you can do is at least write to your bilingual coordinator. Most likely they will receive it first. Go ahead and just give a little short bio of who you are, where you're coming from, and stating that you're the language assistant for the upcoming school year. So if you get a response, that's great. If not, no worries. Everybody will be reporting to the first day of work on October 1st. So what that will look like, I mean, everyone should be be at their town prior to that date, if possible, but you will go ahead and enter your school on the 1st of October. You will make your way to the front office, and hopefully by then, somebody will recognize you as maybe the new language assistant for the school year. And when you're there, you can go ahead and introduce yourself to the faculty and everybody in the office. Now, keep in mind, I know a lot of you are probably nervous, but the most important thing to keep in mind is to put on a smile. Now, if you can't smile with your mask on, go ahead and, show some open body language. You're going to be meeting all of your new students, all your new coworkers that day. So as long as you're coming in with a cheerful attitude and open vibes, you should be fine. So that first day of work should happen there. You will go ahead and, if possible, provide your school on your first day with several documents. I mean, you would like to provide them at least your phone number that you obtained, your banking information, hopefully, that you have. You will also be asked to provide them several more documents as the year progresses. So keep that in mind. But the most important thing before entering and leaving any classroom or any facility in Spain is to enter the room with an hola and to leave the room with an hasta luego.
Yes, I totally agree with Michael. Being super conscious of like the hellos and goodbyes is very big. It's like says a lot about you as a person, I think. But also, for the first day, it's very typical for the school and for the teachers to ask you to bring a PowerPoint so that you can go around and present yourself to all the classes, because all the classes will have all the English speaking classes will have an assistant. So the first week is typically like you going to every single classroom that has an aux in it, and you'll present the PowerPoint and show them and introduce yourself like normal. And then typically the second week or so, if everything is going as planned, then you will get you'll get your schedule and you'll know like what your day-to-day looks like, and they'll explain it to you and whatnot. But at that point, you would have already met everybody like that you need to. So once you see the schedule, like you'll know more or less where you have to be and like what you can expect.
Yeah, I second the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint is like, make it fun and interactive too. Let them know about where you're from. They really want to know about your culture, because the whole point of the program is to be able to, well, one of the points is to be able to really like bring that culture to Spain and let people learn about it. And a question that I got, so how should you dress? Like what should you wear? So I would say always just the first day, just wear smart casual type clothes, something that is decent looking, like clean and crisp, and show up. The school coordinator would love to see that. And throughout time, you'll find that maybe the teachers are a bit more casual with their dress, so you can take it from there.
Yeah. Also, you can just feel as well as going, what Dana said, like going the first day, like, casual. Usually you'll catch the vibe of everyone at the school, and it's like very different for locations too, but it's really normal, just appropriate clothes. It's not really anything too crazy.
And upon arrival as well in the classroom, it's really important that you speak with your bilingual coordinator and talk about what the expectations are for you as a language assistant and for what they are for the school year. I mean, it's very important that you share your personality, your concerns, your abilities with your bilingual coordinator. From there, they will see your strengths and maybe your weaknesses, and you can come up with a plan with what's going to be happening with the school year. The first few days, just expect to just observe and to take notes, but really observe, ask questions when you have doubts. Asking questions will only open doors and they will never close doors. So just do your best with but putting yourself in there and putting yourself with what you bring to the table. Yeah.
I also saw someone say if we're presenting these in English or Spanish, and it's always going to be English, like always English. Don't even if you speak Spanish, like I'm fluent in Spanish and it slips when I say like someone's name or something, always speak in English, because if they even get a hint that you understand Spanish, like they will not try with you at all, especially the little ones. Like if they know at all that you know Spanish, like that's it, English out the window. So always speak in English. And if you want to speak to your teachers in Spanish to like connect to them a little more, make sure there's just no kids outside of class or anything, but always English in the class. That is super important.
I saw something about preparing for high school, and I'd like to add about that introduction preparation for high school specifically. I found it very useful that along with my introduction presentation about me, about Canada, about holidays and things, I gave them a 10-point listening exercise that they have to answer after, because in high school, obviously they have a higher level, and usually the teachers, in my school in particular, when I presented something about Halloween or Christmas, they would ask me to create questions for listening to see if the kids pay attention, if they understand what you're saying. So just have 10 easy questions. What is her name? How old is she? Where is she from your presentation that you make about yourself, so that the kids in high school, also the teachers can get like a listening mark from it. And in terms of preparing things for high school, we are the language assistants, we are the native students. We are not expected to teach grammar. Normally I was asked to do speaking and listening, but it is always good to be open to helping the teachers prepare grammar activities or games for like ESO and Bachillerato. I prepared just PowerPoints of grammar games, also debates for high school. I prefer high school.
Yeah, it's a little different for, I've only had elementary school kids, and they typically, it's this kind of the same, like they're always encouraging you to bring in stuff if you have any ideas to help teach it better. But it's not like on you to come with materials. Either they'll ask you for it because they're just like running out of ideas, or they're just genuinely wanting your input. So it's more like, if you have something to offer, go for it. Like they'll be more than happy to look at your suggestions. And then if they actually need something, they'll ask you for it. So you'll know when you need to prepare things.
I think maybe we can move along to the next and final top four
The
questions.
last and final one, yeah, it's a good idea, Michael. And that one is about your NIE and your TIE, your residency card. So if you guys could address that, that would be great.
I'll go on first. So regarding the NIE, I had the question about getting an appointment to set it up. So I would say with the NIE, this is I'm pretty sure this process is the same across all regions. And don't be concerned, you'll be able to book your appointment ahead on the public administration site. So I'll go ahead and I'll link that in the chat bar so you can take it. But you're going to be able to set up your cita previa, which is going to take place at the National Police Station. And the reason you need to do this is because if you just show up, they'll tell you to make an appointment. So make sure that you go and you set your appointment beforehand, and you'll need to bring your fingerprints and some other documents I believe your school will give you those documents to bring beforehand, unless anyone knows them off the hand. But yeah, so once your appointment is set, then you can show up and they'll take care of you getting your NIE.
And I wanted to make sure that we specify the difference between NIE and DA. So your NIE, for most consulates, if you check your visa when you do obtain your visa, your NIE will be located at the bottom of your visa sticker itself. And it should be a 7-digit number followed by a, well, first should start with a letter, 7-digit number, end with a letter. So several consulates do not provide you a NIE, and when you arrive to Spain, you will have to go to the Extranjería, the foreigner's office, and they will help you obtain to get that NIE. Now, for everybody else who is, in those consulates that do give out the NIE on your passport, that is that number, okay? Keep that in mind. That's just the number itself, numero, NIE. Now, when you arrive to Spain, what Dana was talking about was getting your actual TIE, your tarjeta. Your tarjeta is your actual ID card. Now, it's your job to go ahead and solicit that appointment within the first, 30 days upon arrival in Spain. Now, for some people and some comunidades, sometimes it's really straightforward and the appointments are easy to obtain. Other comunidades like Madrid, where there are large demands for this type of document, can take some time. But your job is to make sure that you are relaxed. It's something that you will obtain. There's plenty of blogs, websites, forums that talk about obtaining these documents. Now, this document will be your legal card once your visa expires. So for most people, that student visa is only valid for 90 days. So during those 90 days, you are to obtain your TIE and go ahead and move on and continue on with the rest of the school year. That TIE will be a document that you always carry along with you in your pocket, in your purse, in your wallet, and that will be your identification within Spain. Now, that's your identification within Spain. If you're traveling to any other European country, you do need to provide your passport as well when you're traveling. So it's best to have both documents together. So keep that in mind. Anything else with NIE?
One of my biggest pieces of advice, if you can't get on time or having hard time getting appointments, I struggled a lot with it, and I obviously still do, but a lot of appointments come out at certain times and certain days. So if you check with your region, or you could even ask probably one of your coordinators or someone who's dealt with this already in your location, check and see what times they come out, because sometimes it's Friday at 9 a.m. and you're there and a bunch of appointments come out. So it's also good to just ask and see if anyone knows more or less when the appointments come out, because that's what helped me. So just a tip I thought of.
Yeah, so when you do apply for your TIE, you will have to provide some documents and some tasas is what they're called. They're payments that you go to a bank and make a payment for. And I believe there's, 3 to 5 documents that you need to take with you. Now, one of the big questions is having passport size photos. Now, if you're coming from the USA, the passport size photos are different from those to what we use here in Spain. The good news is that you could probably leave those passport photos at home and wait to get your new photos done here in Spain. You can go to one of the many kiosks around all of the whole country. You can get up to, I believe, 3 to 5 photos for €5, and they are very specific with their sizing. So if you do show up to any of your appointments where they do ask for a passport photo, chances are, if it's from the US, they'll look at you a little funny and probably pull out the scissors and start chopping. So to save yourself some time and some embarrassment, go ahead and get those photos taken here.
I wanted to add something about the tasas. You have to research the banks, because some banks only accept tasa payments on certain days and certain hours. If you are going to pay a tasa at your bank, for example, my bank is Sabadell, I go to my bank, I can pay with my card. If I'm going to pay a tasa in another bank, for example, Santander, I can only pay in cash. I cannot pay with my Sabadell card. So a tasa is basically the fee that you have to pay to get your TIE, your NIE, to renew your TIE, to renew your NIE, and it's a bureaucratic fee. So be aware of which bank you're gonna go to, also the times and days that they allow you to pay for a tasa.
There's also tasas are for a lot of different things. For example, like if your TA expires and you can't travel with or without it, then you have to get a regreso, which is like a document that just allows you to come in and out of Spain. That's also something you need to get a tasa for. So a lot of the documentation that comes with all these appointments, like make sure you know exactly what you need to bring, because if you show up to the appointments and you're literally missing one form, like you have to do the whole thing all over again. So yeah.
Okay, so I think we've tried to cover those 4 big topics where we had received the most number of questions through the form that you guys sent in. So now we're going to try and take some questions from the Zoom, and some from the Zoom chat. We've been answering some, but some that we think are interesting for everyone to know. How does health insurance work? Do we have to purchase it? The answer is no. I saw online that the ministry has secured insurance for us, but not sure how that works. Could someone address that, please?
Yeah, I could start.
Thank you.
For the health insurance, now this was pre-COVID, so I'm actually a little unsure if it's changed, but I wouldn't assume that we, at our orientation, is where you get your insurance card. So when I signed up for my orientation, I remember I would look on the website. I would check on the website and in your emails, because I got sent out like a list of like every like region, well, in where I was, and it would tell you a certain location to go to your certain orientation. So there wasn't like everybody in one spot. And then when you got to this location, they would just give you a brief little PowerPoint on what to expect, kind of like this. And then at the end of it, they give you your insurance card. So if it's still like that, then that's how you will obtain it. If not, you can check your emails, because your insurance also emails you like an entire thing laying out the package that you have under your school. And I'm sure you can request a card through there if you didn't get it physically another way. I don't know if anyone else wanted to add on to that.
Okay. I think because of time does anyone have something really quick that they need to add on to that?
I was going to say, if anything, I'm putting in the chat right now, the usembassy.gov, a list of medical doctors that do speak English. So you can visit this website and you could go find out where you're living and which doctors that you would need to specialize with if you're looking for an English speaking doctor.
Insurance does not cover dental or eyes. Okay, someone just asked that in the question in the chat, and I just
Nor does it cover pre-existing issues.
That depends, Dana. I think that depends. So yeah. All right. Then there's another question that I also wanted to talk about. A lot of people have concerns about public transportation, especially in Madrid, and then you have a metro system and stuff. That's great. And so you're not going to have any problem with that. If anyone just wants to say like one sentence about that, because that's really easy. But people are concerned if they got a smaller town or a smaller village and how to commute. Can you guys help out with that, please? How they would travel?
When you're in a smaller town or village, there are some buses, but in regard to your commute to school, most likely you will be able to carpool with one of the other teachers. And I want to say 90% of the time, almost 99. So, yeah.
That's why it's important to contact your schools. And if they're not answering you now, they will by the time, by when September 1st rolls around, because they'll be back there. Okay. So you'll get all this information from them. April, you wanted to say something?
I saw someone quickly write that there's no buses that go in and out of her town. My cousin lived in a very small town and there was no buses either. And the people in town were very, very nice. So whenever someone was going to the city center, they would tell him. And if he wanted to go with them, he would go with them. So be open, nice, and talk to the people in the town, because most likely they will help you and take you to the center if you need it.
Anybody else want to address anything here? No? The thing about Madrid, that you get the Metro card or stuff like that, they'll figure that out at orientation. Somebody asked when orientation is. Each regional education office will tell you when orientation is, okay? We cannot answer today questions specific to any specific region, okay? What tips do you have for those that don't know Spanish when looking for housing?
I would say write down the key phrases that you're going to need, and you're going to be messaging a lot of people. So eventually you're going to know what to say, what you need, and you have to practice. So I wrote it down on a piece of paper, like Michael said, in your notes. And as you start messaging them and going to viewings, just repeat the same phrases over and over.
And some people might know English also.
Yes, that's true.
So that's also in case somebody's like really worried about that. Michael, you were going to say something?
And worst comes to worst, if you end up butchering a phrase or some vocabulary, most likely they'll be offering to help you. So, you know, work with them, they'll work with you. Just be open-minded, you know, they'll help you, but thank them for their time. And if it's not your first few choices, at least it's practice, and you're going to move forward till you get to your new home.
Also, use Google Translate, and in any case, like buddy up with somebody in your town who does speak Spanish, like another auxiliar, and have them like perhaps ask them if they can come with you, or if you can call them up on the phone while you're there, and they can actually talk you through all your questions to the person. So just get creative.
It definitely works. My roommate, she didn't speak at all English, and she would just go to the bank and have like Google on her phone ready and would read off it. And it's like, they're going to be able to tell like the gist of what you're trying to say. As long as you're communicated politely and with patience, like you'll come across fine.
Okay, and then just this really last thing, someone said, I found a room to rent on Facebook from a local, and they aren't asking for money or anything before I arrive. Is this still suspicious? Please, please, please. I mean, Michael's like, waving his finger. Please don't get anything before you're in Spain, right? Can you guys just address this again? This is really important.
You must be in Spain in order to sign for your lease to begin with. Do not sign for a lease via Facebook, via Gmail. You must be in person. You want to see the flat in person because pictures are very deceiving. People are deceiving. And, you have to protect yourself. If you're wiring money back and forth, you're going to be out of money. So just wait till you arrive and you'll find a place.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. All right. So I know you have a gazillion more questions. I know you'd be here for 5 hours, but we can't answer every single question. This is part of the experience. Doing NALCAP is just so much about personal growth and personal development. And really, you will figure this all out. These 4 people did, and they're absolutely marvelous, and they're alive, and they're happy, and they love the program. So really, thank you for joining us today. I really apologize for the technical difficulties we'll try and figure out something with the recording. If not, this one will be on our YouTube channel. And really, the best of luck in Spain. I'm sure it'll be experience of a lifetime. Thank you. And thank you so much to our interns. And thank you to everybody for coming today. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.